Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Wells of Wall Street. We have an Energy Web EWT video here for you guys today. Before we go into that one, don't forget to check out the other topics and discussions on the channel and a multitude of different assets that we cover. If there is one that we don't cover and you would like us to, do leave a comment below so we can look at researching those for you. We're just ploughing through as many as we can over the next few days. And obviously don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you have not done so already. And let's go straight into this one, guys. So the last few days there's been a really interesting announcement, or at least an article written via Energy Web in relation to a bid for a relay chain via Polkadot. Now this is obviously a very important part of scalability and certainly the ability to create further efficiency and interoperability across a multitude of different chains and different assets. As we talked about in a multitude of videos in the past, how important interoperability will be, because there simply is not the option of having just one singular blockchain or one singular project operating anything and everything across the world when it comes to blockchain in general and Web3 development and progress. You can kind of understand that really, because if you look at the real world as it is today, there isn't just one company that does one thing. You always have several different ones, albeit that maybe, just maybe, over a period of 30 to 50 years, it might monopolize slightly and you might get less and less of the different variations of companies. You could argue the independent retail sector, for example, as that has transitioned more in digital, but obviously more of the bigger companies, the bigger chains tend to survive and the others diminish, turn into flats, apartments, etc. You can talk about pretty much any sector in the world, to be honest, any industry. This is always the case. And it's no different to this absolutely very much still early market and adoption area in terms of blockchain Web3 perspectives. We are still at the early stages, guys. So it's really important that when we are developing this progress of technology and opportunity of integration into society, into institutional level, that interoperability is at the forefront, or at least really one of the top priorities of any kind of project that wants to really enhance not just its application of its own project, but also the interlacing of being able to be used with others. Because as an end user, whether you are a retail user or an institutional user, you want the best services and the best options possible, right? So in terms of the energy sector, I mean, we're not going to go into huge detail about statistics and things. We've done that a multitude of times in previous videos. Go check them out, particularly the intro video to Energy Web, which I'll try and leave at the end of this one. But we know that more and more countries are adopting infrastructure for blockchain in general, particularly in the financial sectors, but also for supply chain, logistics, etc., and even energy, guys. This is the ability, decentralized opportunity, utilizing blockchain. The great pros of that being transparency, the verification process, smart contracts, the ability potentially of us as users to not waste energy and actually sell surplus energy back onto the system or to other people around the world. So if you can imagine in the near future where you might have a solar panel connected to your own battery that's connected to a Web3 hotspot, you're using the energy you need, but any surplus is going back into the system and you'll get paid for it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, guys. And there's a bit of a weird dilemma here at the moment, because a lot of the partners of Energy Web are deemed to be the kind of monopolized corporations, if you like, in the oil and energy sectors. For example, Shell, which we'll go on to in a second, of their developments in blockchain as well. But you can kind of argue that, well, these oil and energy companies make so much money and they're already kind of like weird with how they perceive their pricing, and how we as users or consumers of this always get the brunt of the tax, the duties, the cost of fuel, the cost of energy in general, right? So the opportunity for blockchain is potentially a decentralized one. When we're talking about decarbonization opportunities, that is arguably the ultimate goal. But I'm very interested to see the development over the next few years, how that proceeds, because Shell and everyone talk about blockchain, about being transparent, verifiable, even easier than it has before, with certifications, etc., on smart contracts, on blockchain processing and validation. But do they want to be doing that? Can they still get away with the obscene profits that they do over time? So it'll be really interesting to see how that progresses. But the main point here, and the relation to Polkadot, obviously, as I said, with the opportunity for scalability is absolutely huge. And when we identify and talk about the opportunities of blockchain's development. We talk about AI algorithms in terms of energy, in terms of things like harvesting and seeding automatically based on supply and demand data. You and I could be buying things from our fridge, which order things automatically, but how is that done? Because you need a transaction to say, oh, this has been taken out, it needs to be replaced. Who does that? And in general, in the near future, when we talk about 5G, 6G development in terms of telecoms and communication, the ability for extra streams of wireless connectivity and communication, this is how it all develops. So it's no different to the energy sector with some of the points we just mentioned earlier, but for sure, when we look at things like the developments of EV cars, how significantly that has been sped up over the years, almost potentially a lot of people being forced to do it because of the cost of rising energy bills and things like this. And at the moment, there are unique kind of incentives, if you like, to go into electric cars, whether that be grants or night charging stations, etc. There will become a time when that balances out and we'll get charged significantly for it, obviously. But I'm looking beyond that, guys. I'm looking beyond that in terms of I'm a very big advocate of hydrogen energy. I think this will be the next big thing for vehicles, which is why I'm probably going to bypass the electric vehicle situation, just because even if it's in 5-10 years time, maybe longer, who knows, but I'm happy to still drive around in my M series BMW. Probably not the best for the environment, but it is fun, and I don't drive it that much, to be honest, because of working from home and stuff. But the point being is that you see these markets, these opportunities in the future, and this is where it kind of like scales up, because actually there's a great valid point here about hydrogen somewhere that I can pick out in a second, where there is no proper IT infrastructure in terms of algorithms, data, tracking information like carbon emissions, etc. So it's a great opportunity to jump with this completely new proper technology, this new system, with a digitalized system. But we're not talking about the old Web 2 digitalization, we're talking about the opportunity for blockchain. So these guys can already see ahead, and that's just one example. We know that they partner very heavily with Vodafone. They just recently actually announced this one, Deutsch Telekom, or as some people used to know it as T-Mobile, certainly here in the UK, and I'm sure around the world it's got variable different names as well. But similarly to the opportunity that they had with Vodafone, with eSIMs, a big massive topic, guys. Have a look at Core, K-O-R-E. It's a really interesting topic to look at, and the development of eSIMs. But these will all be incorporated in everything that we do, and particularly from the energy perspective of tracking, tracing, being transparent. These microtransactions, guys, is exactly why blockchain is needed. We're talking about some of these chains operating, thousands upon thousands of transactions per second. We need that. This isn't talking about our finance transactions. I've mentioned this many times, but if you're new to the channel, I'll explain this very briefly. If I send you money, obviously that is a transaction, and it's kind of like singular to us, but in the background there's a lot of micro things that happen, cross-border payments, etc. Would obviously have added fees, exchange rates, blah blah blah, and potential debts included in that. However, if we're talking about the things I just mentioned earlier, like the food produce, every single element through that whole process, the supply chain mechanism, ordering, manufacturing, harvesting, seeding, are actually actions. However, a lot of it's not done digitally just yet. Some of it is. A lot more is becoming more digitalized. But with blockchain, can you imagine, let's say that whole process of A to Z maybe concludes 10, 15 processes plus the people, maybe manual, maybe automatic, who knows, delivery, transportation, let's say 15, 20 transactions. But then you talked about a multitude of millions of people in the country, then multitude of billions of people around the world. You need infrastructure there, guys, to be doing those thousands upon thousands of transactions per second as we go into this kind of system and format. And it's the same for energy, where we're talking about solar panel, wind turbines, our energy consumption in general, what we're doing, turning laptops on. You know what is really crazy is in the very near future, if not already, with blockchain technology, I could use my laptop and pass over excess processing power to other people around the world and get paid for it. that's what it's about, transactions and all this kind of stuff. But also for the energy of the electric vehicle market, where eventually wireless charging units around each of our countries, around our roads, our systems of cities, the smart grid, etc. Every time you're going through that, or every time you're accessing a driverless car or one of these like whiz cars that they have now, with biometric AI opportunities to enter the car and exit the car, pay for it without getting your phone out or your card out, because it's all done simultaneously with DIDs and eSIMs. This is where every transaction is really important, everything that we would be doing. So it's a really important part of scalability and stability, certainly from Energy Web's perspective, to really push this initiative. And this topic around the telecoms market is very important as well. As I said, yes, we've got Wi-Fi, but also look at the infrastructure around us, guys, with 4G, 5G, 6G to come as well, of course. It's absolutely massive. So when we look here, for example, it just says here, very quickly, in regards to the kind of like partnership, both an infrastructure operator and validator for the Energy Web ecosystem, Deutsch Telekom is contributing to enhanced network security for the Energy Web chain. So not necessarily massively around the utilization of its networks, but more about the security, which is really interesting to see. And especially if you think about that EV topic that we just mentioned, or going into cars that aren't yours, or driverless cars, security in day is going to be massively important. Privacy is going to be massively important. You need to have really big structures in there. And we know Energy Web X, which we covered in the previous video as well, the development of Energy Web to become more secure, more stabilized, more opportunity for development, etc. This is where it all kind of concludes, guys, as a really, really massive ecosystem and a really massive operative technology and project that the Energy Web is about. It's already orchestrating itself around 25 countries around the world. You think about the GDP value of each of those countries that it's involved in, and the more to come as well. It's a really exciting project, and it's a really exciting time to really look into and get involved with the Energy Web Foundation EWT token. Now, whether there's another token that they come out with, the Energy Web X one, is to be seen. But do bear in mind that at the moment, I'm pretty sure this is open to everyone. I don't know what on earth's going on with the silver or gold pools that they spoke about before, but you've still got the opportunity. Just simply go energyweb.org/staking. If you do have EWT in your exchanges or the ability, you can transfer via MetaMask. There's loads of instructions on their Medium articles how to do that. But to take advantage of the 6% APY is pretty decent, especially with the crazy world we've got right now. I'm taking advantage of this. It does end at the end of this year. They'll probably carry it on. There was supposed to be a silver and gold pool, which was based on this old one, how often and how consistent you staked to get higher APY opportunities. But they seem to have gone very quiet on that. I'm not sure. I think there was something to do, not necessarily with security, but the way that they were setting it up wasn't quite working. So just keep an eye out for it. We'll always update you if we hear more about it. But in terms of holding EWT, there's great opportunity in these winter and bear markets to take advantage of staking opportunities and grab yourself extra tokens, through the staking platform. So just bear that in mind. It's a really good opportunity to, if you haven't got Energy Web on your radar or portfolio, it's certainly something to consider. But relaying back to that first article, let's keep an eye on this, because this will occur probably, I think they said, literally the end of this month, 28th, 29th of June. Where the bidding opportunity will happen on the parachain. This is an opportunity for DOT holders to essentially be really excited and enticed about projects that they want to add onto the parachain system. This will help massively develop Energy Web's infrastructure and interoperability perspectives. And it's certainly something, if you're a holder of both, you'd be very interested in, because obviously there's an opportunity to obtain DOT, I believe, if I remember correctly, when I last did them, to get rewards on both sides of that tail as well. So just keep an eye on it, guys, because it will be coming in the coming weeks. I think they said they were going to announce it at their next event, and I think it's this one. This is Polkadot Decoded. So June 28th, 29th. Okay, so that's when they, I believe, plan to announce the information about that. Whether it starts on the auction at that time or later remains to be seen. But it's coming, guys, which is really, really exciting as holders of both. I literally upped my dot allocation a few days ago as well, because I just think, in the last bull cycle, when we saw the big numbers that it got up to compared to where it was originally, kind of around where these prices are now was when I was getting them back in 2020. So it's why I kind of like looked at it the other day and I was like, I do not want to make that mistake again. And I'm doing similar with EWT tokens as well. But yeah, this whole point here, Polkadot is a network protocol that allows arbitrary data, not just tokens, to be transferred across blockchains. As I said, it's really important if you want to succeed as a big technology and a project in blockchain and Web3 space, that you have that interoperable perspective and opportunity and scalability as well, as all of these chains will talk to each other, especially with dApps. dApps is a big evolution of the space as well. You can imagine how many apps we might need to still use, whether that's through our AR goggles or our contact lenses, who knows, in the near future. But this is kind of thing that you want to think about, right? So do keep an eye out on all of that. And as I mentioned earlier, it's worth having a read through these different little articles, especially on the Shell website. They talk heavily about Web3 technology. It's really interesting to see how existing big companies, Shell's been around for maybe 100 years. I'm not sure exactly how long they've been around for, sorry. But it's really interesting to see that these guys are really thinking about it and talking about it now more so than ever before. So again, I'll leave some links to these articles in the comments below. It's definitely worth talking about. And just to be, again, the point about this Polkadot chain, I do believe this may have come through the Aventus program. So Aventus, we covered this a couple months ago with the partnership of these two coming together, especially with Energy Webs and Aventus. Aventus are very clever at bringing or bridging companies together, whether it be with other chains or other technologies or projects or systems, infrastructures. And way back last year, Aventus did do a parachain migration, and that was completed successfully, I think December, January, just gone. So it wouldn't surprise me that because of that relation, they've also helped Energy Web focus on this kind of switch in as well. So it would not surprise me at all. But that's the topic, guys. I think it's really interesting to see this development. As I said, check out the previous videos we've done on Energy Web, because we do go into massive depth of the energy sector, what that means market-wise, growth-wise, but also how that application of Web3 energy perspective is going to be absolutely storming it over the years to come. And I do honestly believe, we'll go into the chart in a second, but the current price point, if I would just jump into that now, to be fair, the current price point of Energy Web right now is at one of those really key stages in its development for the future. So as I mentioned earlier about missing opportunities in the past, this is talking about me personally. This current price point of 282, yes, is on the slightly higher spectrum if you look at it from the last week or so, which is why I'm not buying as of today, because you see the RSI on the bottom left-hand corner here. It's showing about 60, I think, on the 14-day and 53 on the 28. So it's a bit too high from a manual purchase for me. I do still have my buy orders at some of the lower regions, but certainly where I've been purchasing in the past, particularly here at 270, that is still where I've got some buy orders along this kind of longer term fib retracement level. I've also got a shorter spectrum here we can just about see. So it's kind of showing you that there's a lot of resistance trying to push past that $3 mark. It keeps dragging itself back down. So that's an identifiable point for me personally with purchasing, but also at these slightly lower regions as well. Not too far lower than where we are currently, but it is literally kind of floating around this area here, just in conjunction with what we saw back in 2022. Obviously big gaps and movements upwards have brought it back down into these kind of areas in general. So yeah, the next one down is 250. That doesn't sound like a lot of difference, but the way I'm trying to accumulate EWT, that extra sort of 40 to 50 cent saving is actually quite significant when you're trying to buy the units right at these, I wouldn't say higher price levels, but if you compare them to a lot of other projects out there, irrespective of circulation and supply and stuff, it's obviously one of the higher ticketed kind of projects out there. But for me personally, I do believe in the next bull cycle that we could easily try to get to that $100 minimum mark. If you think about it strategically, not just because of the general trend movements and cycles of the project in the chart. I mean, the last time in the bigger bull cycle around 2021, I believe it was, we hit that sort of 23 $24 mark. And if you think about it, that was all the way back from starting ranges, slightly higher than it is today. But unfortunately, the data doesn't go too far back on this one. It's taken through Qcoin, I believe. But at these spectrums of $2.50-ish, $3 even is not that too bad. To get to that 25 mark and beyond, it's going to be a great return. But I do think it will be hitting that $100 mark as we get to around 2025, and certainly in that spectrum of 25 to 2030, as all this gets switched on. The new financial system, the new energy way of working. We know the heavily integration of things like the European Commission, all the countries that it's currently operating in as well. It's a really big future, in my opinion, for Energy Web and the EWT token. And I think there's a lot of stability. Whether they've got automatic market makers to keep them afloat, it never seems to trigger itself down below $2. But I do think there's a lot of people staking as well that's kind of keeping it in balance in this kind of area. So I do actually ironically have a slightly lower buy point, and it sounds a bit crazy, it's just slightly under the $2 mark. I've got it at like 170. From my perspective, I don't think it's ever gone down to that level. I have to double check. But my point being is that you never know in these bear markets. We have one slide down and that $2 mark just simply gets broken. It could go and hit those areas, but it's just really strange that it just constantly hits those areas and stops, which is why I think there's something in place. We'll have to see. Those that don't know, automatic market makers is kind of like a marketing system, if you like, or a system in place that projects technology sometimes use to kind of like chuck in a load of transactions to stop it from going down a certain level, whether that's to protect itself from a brand perspective, or protects itself potentially against some of its partners, to say actually those partners that have invested, we can assure you that it won't go down to this level. It's kind of like that stakeholder conversation, isn't it? Profits and loss and stuff, and shares, etc., back in the existing stock market philosophy. But yeah, I can imagine that might be why it's never breaking this area. It's just really bizarre. But other than that, guys, performance wise, it's doing okay on the 1 week and the 1 month. The others are in negative, not too bad though. There are worse performing projects than that, but this kind of confirms my point, the stability of Energy Web, and I think more and more people are becoming aware of it. And I certainly think that when people do hold it because of the value of it, it's kind of like, oh, why do I want to sell? Like I'm maybe at a loss, but it's a lot of money to sort of just chuck away willy-nilly. And I do think that we're going to see significant returns on this project. One thing I would say is just keep an eye on it, because how many projects I've seen where they potentially bring out another token, or there's a migration or whatever it might be. Let's keep an eye on that. And I will try and report anything that ever changes, because Energy WebX, is in development. There was talk or not talk whether they bring or not bring a token out. I think the last time we did a video, they said they weren't, but you just never know when things are going to change. So let's keep an eye on that. And as I said, the staking platform is still going. It's a good opportunity to get the extra APY, continue to build your EWT in that way as well. So that's very much the topic, guys, of EWT at this moment in time. They're my positions that I've got for the limit orders. That's where we are with it. Let us know in the comments below what you're doing with EWT. Are you new to it? And also don't forget to check out the previous videos as I mentioned, because there's lots of information that we've got on this significant project. I'm going to wrap that up there, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next EWT video. Take care. Bye bye.